Hi everyone, and welcome back to week 6 of our Social Work 502 Human Behavior and the Social Environment class here at Widener. Dr. Eileen McCabe-Moucher here with you again. So we are really coming down the home stretch of our 7-week journey together. So here at week 6, we're going to reanalyze Danny's biographical timeline. So first thing that you want to do is to come to our course and to click on the week 6 page. And as always, we're going to carefully peruse those learning resources, which consist of the objectives, readings, and as well as other media sources here. So our week 6 reading, very interesting read entitled DSM Diagnosing for Status and Money, a summary critique of the DSM-5. So I look forward to hearing your comments about what you have to say about this very interesting article. We also have here a compilation of videos, and you are asked to watch all of these videos about the DSM-5 controversy. So now, with all of the information that you've acquired over the past 6 weeks together, we're going to go to our week 6 discussion board post and reassess Danny's biographical timeline. So what you want to do is you want to click on this blue link here and revisit Danny's biographical timeline, Dr. Baral's biographical timeline article, as well as Professor Ginny Folk's new video. So you can access all of those 3 items simply by clicking on the blue links here embedded within our Engage platform. So we're asking you to do 3 different things in your initial prompt post. The first thing that you want to do is make suggestions for how you would go about assessing Danny. Think about what supports are needed and what you should ask Danny directly to obtain the most information possible. So you want to think about actual questions that you would pose to Danny if he was sitting right in front of you. So think about, probes, prompts that you may use, ways that you may phrase sentences, and put those right on the discussion board for us all to learn from. So the second thing that you want to do is, based on Danny's timeline, do you think he has behavioral manifestations, signs, and symptoms of a mental health condition, yes or no? And if so, if yes, you want to use the DSM-5 diagnostic language to substantiate his DSM-5 symptoms and your diagnosis. So thirdly here, we know that people can have a long list of diagnoses that are assigned over time. Not all of these diagnoses are based on a holistic assessment using a diagnostic framework. So, we as social workers, with our highly specialized education, that's one of our great strengths, is that we are trained in this holistic assessment process. So we're asking you to choose the 1 or 2 diagnoses that you think best explains Danny's symptoms. Does your diagnosis agree with Danny's list of previous diagnoses? So why or why not? So you want to use diagnostic language to substantiate your answer. So you really want to allow your clinical skills, your clinical language, all of the new information that you've acquired, you want to really allow it to shine through here in your writing on our discussion board. So you want to make sure that you're following up with at least 2 classmates this week, once again, preferably with classmates who don't have responses, so everybody has an opportunity to receive some feedback here. So we have 2 major assignments that are due this week, and they can be submitted right here within the submission tab. The first item that you want to submit is your condition presentation, and that's due by this Sunday, 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you recall, I went through a pretty detailed information about the condition presentation in week 1 of our coursework. So I encourage you to go back and watch that video. Of course, as always, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me, remembering not to struggle on your own, to reach out and let me know. I'm happy to help you. That's why I'm here, is to help guide you through the course. Also due this week is your clinical vignette part 2, which I'm going to explain a little bit in depth now. So for your clinical vignette 2, you want to make sure that you are utilizing the rubric that is embedded right here in the Engage platform. It's right on the course homepage. So underneath all of the week's information, you'll see the major assignments. So you want to make sure that you're using your rubric and make sure that you're answering or responding to all of the prompts within here so you can get full credit for making attempts here. So for this clinical vignette part 2, you want to make sure that you're including the first section from vignette 1. So you want to update this information as necessary. So for those of you that are working with real life clients in a real life clinical setting, we know that clients change from week to week and day to day. So you want to make sure that you're including or integrating all of the new ongoing assessment data and clinical data into your clinical 2 vignette here. Now, if you are working with a client maybe based on a fictional film or a novel, there's not much that's going to change necessarily. So you can just update it necessarily as you want to. Or if you'd like to be creative and actually imagine that this client has made some clinical gains and you want to build that into your vignette, you're free to do that. As if you have any trouble doing that, any questions related to that, feel free to reach out to me. I'm here to help you brainstorm with that. So as with that clinical vignette part 1, you're going to want to include all of these sections. So that's the introduction, the data sources used for the report, identifying information, the presenting problem, chief complaint, the presenting problem description, a brief history of the presenting problem. So that includes background, supports, as well as your view. And then you want to make sure that you are adding the following items to your vignette part 1. Okay, so you want to just essentially resubmit and update as appropriate all of the information from clinical vignette part 1, and then add all of this information from here down. So you want to be exploring the signs and symptoms and rationale using DSM-5 symptoms. So you want to reassess the individual based on all diagnoses that have been covered in the course. So for part A, you're going to define the person's challenging behaviors and other behavioral manifestations of possible symptoms and or actions of that person. So for part B, you're going to state what behavioral manifestations may relate to signs, symptoms of diagnoses covered in this course. For C, you're going to assess the person and determine 2 to 3 possible differential diagnoses using the behavioral manifestations to support your symptom choices. For part D, you're going to want to make sure you give a rationale for each differential diagnoses. For E, you're going to make a list of the ruled out diagnoses. For F, you're going to choose a working diagnosis, making sure that you're giving substantive rationale for your diagnostic decision. And you really want to make sure that you're incorporating DSM-5 terminology within this section. So G, based on that person's life experiences, you want to identify diagnoses that are not listed in differential and working diagnoses that the person may be at risk to develop. For part H, you're going to want to make sure that you list the person's current medications and discuss whether or not your diagnoses match with the patient's current medications. So next thing that you're going to do is work on this summary section. And this summary section should be approximately 1 page in length. And in this summary section, you want to include these factors A through G. So you're going to discuss how you resolve differential diagnostic challenges. And in the process of working through these differential diagnoses, tell us about how your view of the individual has changed over time. You're also going to want to include how your view of the presenting problem has changed, how your expectations of the client has changed, how your view of the person's original diagnosis has changed, what has changed for your client, and you also want to absolutely make sure that you're addressing countertransference feelings toward the client. So for this paper, you must include at least 3 references and not including websites, DSM-5, or the textbook. So you want to make sure that you're really utilizing the library and submitting some scholarly literature. So journal articles would make great references here. So these resources should assist you in making diagnostic decisions that are related to the client's presenting problems and psychosocial factors. So this has a 12-page limit, and that's not including the title page or references, and that should be submitted in APA style. So again, that's 1-inch margins, double spaced, using that standard 12-point Times New Roman font. So again, the title page should be present, headings should be used for all 5 sections, in-text citations, and a reference page should be present, and you should be following APA format consistently throughout. So it's right here, and once again I encourage you just to have this rubric, and perhaps printing it out and having it alongside you as you're writing your paper is a really helpful strategy, just to make sure that you're covering all of your bases here, because I'm asking you to really integrate all of the material that we've covered in the coursework so far. So that summarizes all of our week 6 coursework here. As always, please feel free to reach out if you need clarification on any of the assignments or have a question, and I hope you have a wonderful week.